Joaquin and James Bond. Can we have Guy Madden, please? And here's Nate Cole. Oh, hi, Guy. And Brian Tellerico. Hi, Guy.
It's great to see you, Chaz. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh,
Thanks
my
everyone for
goodness.
coming.
This played so well. You should have heard this audience's laughter.
Oh man, that warms my heart. Thank you. Yeah, it's horrible sitting. I feel like an old grandfather sitting by the radio at home imagining things or something. But Andrew is nice enough to tell me that there is some laughter. So,
Oh, yes.
I'm a bit laughter promiscuous. We need to laugh. I'll take them whether they're intended or not.
So we are so sorry that you couldn't come. I told them that about the letter that the university professors got, and also we've been reading about some of the border problems crossing between Canada and the United States that I would have never thought I'd see in my lifetime.
Yeah, it's crazy. But I couldn't afford the burner phone and burner laptop that was recommended. And then also I couldn't afford to be detained. So I don't know. I'm not sure what the chances of it happening were, but when I got it was officially suggested not to travel. So pretty heartbreaking. I hope that changes. I love coming to America. I've had such a great time the 2 times I've been to Ebertfest. It's amazing. So I accepted the invitation way back months ago. I was so excited about coming. It's great weather down there when it's terrible weather up here in April. I don't know, the whole thing. And it's just such an amazing film festival too. And I used to run into other Winnipeggers down at Ebertfest as well, perennial Ebertfesters who would come down from my city. So I didn't feel it just seemed like such a wonderful place to be. And it is. And now I'm missing it.
Yes, but we are seeing you on the big screen, and I'm told that there was a new method they're doing that you can actually see the audience. Can you see the audience? No?
Yeah, now I can. The camera's been swung around. There you are. You're really there. And you're really there. You're not cardboard cutouts. It's not like Major League Baseball during the strike, during the pandemic. Yeah, I love it.
So tell us a little bit about how you came about coming up with this G7 summit and this whole crazy movie. I'm sorry, I shouldn't call it that.
It came about out of work avoidance, believe it or not. My partners and I, Evan and Galen Johnson, they're brothers. They're about 30 years younger than I am. I'm 69. They're 40-ish. And we've been working on various scripts over the years, and we decided that, we'd really get a script right. But these scripts kept getting more and more complicated. I have a bad habit of just filling scripts with too muchness. And so every time we threw a script out, one thing kept returning, and that was a tiny little subplot involving bog mummies. And we decided we liked them. It's almost like a genre picture to have revivified bog mummies. But whenever we got tired, because screenwriting is exhausting, we would watch G7 summit clips on YouTube, just as a way of avoiding work. And we grew to love the way G7 world leaders moved around. In the clips on YouTube, which I recommend looking at, unless you've had enough of G7 for the night, but go home and tuck yourself into bed and watch on YouTube some past G7 summits. The camera's always very far away, but the leaders are performing. They're performing in a silent movie style, but not like the silent movies that we all know. They're performing like a geopolitical silent movie. They're hand gesturing in great, grandiloquent ways. They're miming how much they like each other. And it's performative for the folks back home that can say, hey, my world leader likes all the other world leaders, and look, the President of the United States is talking to my world leader, and it's just meant to feel good, and the spouses are always part of it as well. We wanted to keep this simple and just keep the cast down to 7 main characters, and so spouses got written out. But we just found it was so strange. It was almost like one of those grand Robert Wilson performance pieces, you know, a durational thing with people moving around. There's always a host nation. Justin Trudeau, our former Prime Minister, hosted one once, and it's always in a grand castle or a hotel somewhere. And I remember they rehearsed all the world leaders coming down the stairs, they must have, of this grand place, and down a ramp, and where they would meet Justin Trudeau and his wife, and all pretend to be getting along and making each other laugh. But something must have happened. It must have rained that morning, and there was an unpredicted puddle on the steps, so every world leader had to come down the stairs, and then they encountered this puddle that was only about a foot wide on one of the stairs, and each one of them tackled the obstacle of the puddle slightly differently. It was kind of unbelievable. Some would step right in it, some would try to tiptoe around it, others would take 2 steps instead of 1 at that point. I don't know, it was then that we realized Emmanuel Macron of France always walked around with not 1 but 2 cell phones, and he would be texting, two-fisted texting. And I don't know, we just learned to fall in love with these people. And when we started writing the script, it was from a place of contempt for them, because half of them are war criminals and stuff. But we ended up kind of loving these leaders as we wrote for them.
Are you telling us we shouldn't take these people seriously?
Anyone, yeah. Well, these people in the movie, maybe not. It's also, we decided once, whatever the plot there is, it's kind of a formless plot that eventually coalesces around just getting back to the balcony to give a speech to a couple of bog mummies. It was something that could have just as easily been about high school grad instead of a G7 summit. Before writing the script, we had watched American Graffiti and also Dazed and Confused, and also Midsummer Night's Dream. 3 great movies all set in one long, enchanted night. And we liked the idea. I was lucky somewhere in my teen years to have a number of long, enchanted nights. Those nights where the temperature is just right, and the sky opens up, and you can see 10 times as many stars as usual, and everyone you encounter seems to promise adventure or romance. Just one of those things. And we thought we'd just make a G7 movie in which the leaders get to have a long, enchanted night. But where most high school long, enchanted nights end in just you going staggering to bed long after the sun has risen, these people just get to face an apocalypse. But they at least form a policy that they're going to face their deaths with some sort of courage.
So I noticed that you made the Canadian minister kind of sexy. Was he supposed to be like Trudeau, Justin Trudeau?
I guess the existence of Justin Trudeau made him possible, but we sort of made Maxim, Prime Minister, the Canadian Prime Minister, kind of what Justin Trudeau probably thinks, how sexy he thinks he is, or something. We worked with Roy Dupuis, our Canadian Prime Minister in this movie, 10 years ago in a movie called The Forbidden Room, and we really loved him. He's a huge star in French Canada, in Quebec. You know, he has to live
Which movie was that? I didn't hear that.
The Forbidden Room, it's called.
Oh, the Forbidden Room, yes.
Yeah, it's a really sprawling, strange movie about lost cinema, where we adapted a bunch of lost movies and mashed their plots, 17 lost movies and mashed their plots together, and he was the star of that. But so when we were writing the script, he was the only person we wrote specifically for. We thought he's the only, there's some great Canadian actors. You know, there's the Ryans, Gosling and Reynolds, and many others. And, but we wrote this for Roy Dupuis, and if he turned us down, we were sort of screwed. We realized that, and so we approached him first, long before Kate Blanchett. And he did turn us down. He told me on the phone that he had, in French Canada, played a role similar to this, a tempestuous, you know, hot-headed, sexy guy, and that he didn't want to play it one more time. He said he was really sorry because he was looking forward to working with us again. But then he phoned back the next morning and said, he eagerly reported that he had just awakened from a dream in which he had sex with a bog mummy, and that he took that as a sign that he wanted, that he should do the movie after all. And so, we had been just sitting around in a state of shock, staring at our own feet, depressed, wondering what to do next, when all of a sudden, we were saved. He just had this great dream. And then Kate Blanchett was the next person to come into play. I happened to be watching her Criterion Closet picks, and she chose the movie My Winnipeg, which played down at Ebertfest. And she said some nice things, so I went, wait a minute, she knows who I am. And I got Ari Aster, one of the executive producers on our film, who knew her a bit, and to be a matchmaker, and we had a phone call that lasted 61 minutes on Good Friday 2 years ago. And the first 60 minutes we were just shooting the breeze about all sorts of things except the script. And then with 1 minute to go, she said, okay, I'll do the movie, and just have your people call my people. And then once she was in place, the other actors fell into place rather quickly.
Why did you choose Charles Dance to be the American president?
Yeah, that's a good question, and he's been tortured by this, believe me. It was the first idea we had once we decided to do a G7 movie. There's 3 of us in the writer's room, so we were sitting there, and I think we were all thinking the same thing at once without, I've never confirmed this, but I think we were all thinking this at the same time. We're going, what do you do with casting the American president? The American president role in movies has been filled with great diversity. Even Viola Davis recently, an African-American woman president, you know, playing, and there have been, but we just didn't want to, I don't know, I was just sort of thinking, what's a new way of filling that role when Evan just said, and the American president is British. And we all 3 of us laughed, and then we just agreed. We didn't explain why. We each had our own reasons. I think Galen thought later, he told me just a couple months, so like 2 years later, he told me that he'd always rationalized it like that politics in the world were swinging so far to the right that America was just a colony again, or like a British colonizer. And to me, it was like a parallel universe. What if America had lost the Revolutionary War? The presidents would have British accents. I don't know. That was enough for me. It was kind of one of those Louis Buñuelian gestures that I thought best just not explain. But I'm happy to explain it now. And Charles Dance gets nothing but this question when he's interviewed. And I ran into him at the Cannes Film Festival. We're all doing press. It was very exciting. And he dropped an F-bomb. I'll just say effing. But he ran into me. I said, hey, Charles, how's it going? He said, if I get asked about my British accent one more effing time, I'm going to effing kill you. Something like that. So but we just thought he really wanted it explained in the movie. And he'd written a really nice monologue explaining why he had a British accent. But we thought that it might come off as one of those explanations that actually draws too much attention to itself and is less delightful. He just you know, so I promised him that I would say it was at our command that he didn't change, he didn't use an American accent. I'm keeping that promise now. He can do a great American accent. He can do all sorts of accents. He's a wonderful actor. Frankly, I liked casting him because I can think of no one more British nor more presidential. So I think he's perfect for the role. And he was our first choice. Once Kate came on board, we approached him, he said yes, and he'd always wanted to work with Kate. I don't know if he had been eagerly spending years waiting to work for me, but with Kate, yes, and that really helped.
I'm curious about the collaboration or the calibration of something this surreal and out there. Do you have discussions like, this is one too many masturbating bog people or one too few masturbating bog people? Like, is there anything like that was so ridiculous that you were like, no, we can't do that?
You're right, we did have conversations about how many masturbating bog people there should be. We agreed that, and it's kind of lost in the shadows, that there should be exactly 7 masturbating bog people, like the G7, an Iron Age G7. So when they're first encountered pleasuring themselves around that fire, there actually are 7, but you can't count them. And it ended up having to be edited a certain way, so you can't keep count. But the reason we wanted that sort of symmetry, because one theory, no one knows for sure what these bog mummies are, but some people think they are tribal leaders that disappointed the tribe in some way as leaders. Either the crops were bad, or hunting was bad, or there was illness in the tribe, and so they were ritualistically sacrificed and dumped in the bog, where they were miraculously preserved by the pH value of the bog water. No one could have known that in the Iron Age 2,000 years ago. But the idea of looking across time, across a bog, and seeing 7 leaders there kind of reflected as, you know, the 7 living leaders looking back in time to these Iron Age leaders, and the Iron Age leaders looking forward in time to these leaders, who probably, I'm not seriously suggesting this, but some people might think they should be ritualistically sacrificed and dumped in a bog. So it's a form of them that was once practiced. Anyway, to your question, sorry. Yes, sometimes we just say, that's one too many. You know, that's the giant brain, for instance, sort of sat on a trapdoor for many months in the writing room. Well, it only took a short time to write, but
Who came up with the giant brain? Who came up with the giant brain idea, and what does it mean?
What does it mean?
Yes.
Well, I'll take the blame for it because it irritates a lot of people. And I've just always been a pulp fantasy fiction art fan. I don't read a lot of those old, you know, science fiction pulp magazines, but I like the artwork, and I collect the books that collect them. And the giant brain appears often in those mid-20th century pulpy sci-fi fantasy things. And I just thought the movie I really liked the dialogue that Evan Johnson, he's the one that wrote the script. The 3 of us wrote the story. He wrote the script. He went into some sort of trance, and he writes this geopolitical talk and just launches it from his lips. He can just speak in it. He goes into a trance, and the movie gets airborne with this self-loving language. And we just thought it needed a visual beat or two where people would stop talking for a little while, although they talk plenty around this giant brain, but just where you'd have something, a beat for the viewers to remember something. And I'd always wanted to put a giant brain in something. I frequently do, as a matter of fact. And it just looked so good. We all know from the, gray matter that brains are gray, but in movies, brains they gotta be pink.
Why didn't the brain move? It was a static brain.
Budgetary reason. Yeah, I think in the very first, we changed very little of the script, but I remember in a little startling surprise, the Canadian Prime Minister discovered it by himself first, and just to be on the safe side, he pulled out a handgun that he had concealed on him and shot the brain once. But then we replaced that single bullet with Alicia Vikander, hiding on the other side, shredding documents. And it suggested that the brain was, the brain should throb or glow or something like that. Some critics have written that it glows, but it doesn't really glow so much as a glisten. It's just covered in brain goo, which is actually doubles as a flammable, like explosive when you set it on fire. It's a glazed brain, like a donut at Dunkin's.
That reminds me that I remember you came to Roger's attention with, I think it was the saddest movie in the world. Is that the one where Isabella Rossellini is a woman who has a glass leg filled with beer?
That's the one, yes. Yeah, that's from 2003. I think it came maybe a couple years later to Ebertfest, and saddest music in the world. Yes, Isabella plays a double amputee who's, for some reason, she's a beer baroness, and she's had legs made out of glass and filled with beer. It's just her way of getting off on her wealth.
Was there a question there, Chaz?
So, they told us that we're able to go with questions from the audience. Usually when we have someone on the screen, we don't, but they say that you can see the audience. Is that true? I have to ask Kelly and the guys back there, or the people up here, can he see the?
I can see the audience. And
Okay,
also,
yeah. Let's
as
get the microphones out
Hi.
then,
I
and
have
we'll
a-
take a couple of questions from the audience for Guy.
Okay,
Absolutely,
I have
sure.
a question over here on your left.
Okay.
Sure.
Stand and please stand when you ask the questions. You are standing.
Hello. Mr. Madden, I'm a very big fan of your work. You're one of my favorite contemporary directors, and this film, I really liked it. Visually, it was stunning, but it struck me, this film visually is very different from many of your other films. Something like
Yes.
My Winnipeg, My Winnipeg, it was kind of a lot of shaky camera shots and very quick cut, and this film felt a lot more kind of coordinated and straight in its visual style. And it was shot in color, of course. So kind of why did you choose that more normal visual style for this film?
Yes, we almost used the promotional cut line on the poster. It's normie, something. It's in color, it's in focus, it's contemporary. Well, My Winnipeg is a movie, a docu-fantasia or whatever. It's just a big essay film about my memories, and it's called. It's got still photos from my childhood that are sort of Ken Burns in. It's got animated sequences. It's got archival footage from the 30s. It's got fake archival footage from the 20s. It's got all sorts of things. It's got some early color home movies in it. It's just a mixed bag of things because my memories come from many different sources, and they're mediated by the form in which they come. I also shot lots of stuff, just handheld camera, and it's shaky. But it was meant to be sort of put together like a child's drawing or a child's collage or something. So it was meant to be kind of primitive, but emotional. The way children draw, they sometimes draw very emotionally, but it's sloppy. No one would say their drawings are realistic, but they might say they're beautiful or emotional. So that was why I adopted that style for this, for My Winnipeg back in 2007. But for this, we felt that if this movie was going to get airborne at all as a strange, dreamy night among friends, that it had to start off as normally as possible, that it would be a G7 summit as usual, business as usual there. So that means daylight, color, shots in focus, shots on a tripod, or very smooth, or on a dolly. And then once the sun sets and the world leaders are abandoned, then things could start slowly prying themselves away from the expected. And so we needed it to start off that way. And there was no reason to invoke past film vocabularies from the silent movie era, when the G7 itself wasn't formed until the early 70s. So it just would have sat wrong with the film. And I've been making these movies that repurpose film vocabulary units from the deep, dark past, forgotten past of cinema, and for so long now, many decades. And I feel with the movie that I mentioned earlier, The Forbidden Room in 2015, that I kind of perfected it in a way, that I did as good a job with mimicking the language and spirit, strange spirit of those gorgeous films, and that it was time to move on. And I was very pleased with, I think if you ran a DNA test on this movie and My Winnipeg, you'd find that there's the same DNA in there. It's just got a different look on the outside, but it's got whatever mischief it's up to, or whatever it is that is in my DNA is in this movie as well, because I was delighted by what normally is done visually. I was delighted by what was done with language in this, and with the strange dream shape of it. The fact that almost everyone was out, and then a sex entrapment chatbot draws everyone back. It's a little bit nightmarish, but we weren't committed to any one genre, to horror or to romance or whatever genres are mashed up in there. So we sort of hoped that the hybrid would be dreamlike as well, but it needed to be shot like a normal. We wanted it to look like everything, but it needed to be shot like a normal contemporary movie.
Could you just talk a little bit about your DNA?
Yeah, sure. I'm not sure. Yeah, I do know that I always wanted to be a writer. When I was in my early 20s, I dreamt of being a writer, but I was a good enough reader of literature to know that I could never be a good enough writer to write something that I, as a reader, would be impressed with. So when I discovered that through the work of Louis Buñuel in L'Âge d'Or, his second film after Chien Andalou, a movie where he only had one actor, but he had about 40 non-actors, and just some good ideas, and it's shot with intentional bad continuity. Being a surrealist, he was allowed bad continuity. Bad continuity helps surrealists, as a matter of fact. When I first saw that movie, I thought, maybe I could make a movie too, because I don't know any actors. I could use non-actors, and I have a few ideas. I had a few recurring dreams that I wanted to film that meant a lot to me. And when I saw David Lynch's Eraserhead, I felt the same way. Most people stagger out of their first encounter with Eraserhead feeling that's a really weird movie, and it is. But I realized watching it that he had been through exactly the same thing I had. He was exactly 10 years older than I am, and exactly 10 years before I did, he got someone pregnant and got married and had a baby suddenly, and felt really discombobulated every night. I remember marrying someone I barely knew and having a baby to look after, and the only time I could think clearly was in the middle of that trip to the bathroom in the middle of the night, where I'd go, wait a minute, I'm 21 years old and I'm a father, and there's a baby sleeping in the next room, and I've got to get up in the morning and be responsible, and then in the morning I would get up and everything would be dreamy again. It was like the waking hours were the dreamy hours. It was very strange. So I always wanted to make movies that were psychologically plausible and said something about myself, but when I'm scared of being perceived as too serious, so I only allow myself to do that for a few moments at a time in a film before flat-tiring myself with some stupid gag. I feel it's important that and my partners are like this too, as smart as we want to be seen as, we really like being dumb. We really like being, kind of having just stupid things in movies. And it does make people uncomfortable, the weird mixture of dumb and aspiring smarty pant. I don't know. It doesn't exactly fill in all the details in my DNA strand, but there's that tendencies in there for sure. That I want to create psychologically honest experiences that can be shared with the movie viewers. But I want to protect myself by being dumb.
You have a way of making stupid things believable.
Thank you. I should have gone in for more lying in my life, maybe. I don't know. Thanks.
Another question from the audience?
In the balcony to your left.
Balcony left.
Hey there.
Hi. I just wanted to say that I was very, very sad when I heard that you weren't going to be coming, especially since I drove 9.5 hours from Milton, Ontario, and crossed the border. It was like driving into East Berlin, man, but I did it. But I understand. I really do. I actually temporarily deleted a couple of my social media apps on my phone just in case.
Yeah.
You guys have no idea, man.
Well, it's not like we're like Fidel Castro or anything like that.
No,
anyway, but,
no.
Thanks for.
And I hid my my Brittle Star shirt under the rest of my clothes. I love this movie. You broke my friend's brain over here. I think you broke a lot of brains. It was delightful to see. I had foolishly described this as one of your more normal movies. Well, I mean, kind of, I guess, in that there are, colors and, dialogue and things. But I was interested in what you were saying about how you felt you had sort of perfected that earlier thread in your films of using that older cinematic language.
Yeah.
Do you see this as sort of the start of a new thread, or do you think you're going to just sort of keep trying other new and different things?
I guess it'll depend on the project. I just thought that this was the right approach for this project. We have a TV series in development that'll have a completely different feel. And we have a movie that it's best not to talk too much about these projects that are very early in their first trimesters, but it's too early for a gender reveal. And but they won't look like My Winnipeg. But I hope they look amazing, and I hope I hope maybe on this one we didn't get to work on the look as much, and I think we dodged a bullet in a way, because I wasn't even sure this movie was a comedy, or if it was funny enough to be considered a comedy. And with comedies you can get away without making movies ridiculously picturesque. You can you don't have to make them look like Powell and Pressburger's Black Narcissus or anything like that. It's you get the camera back and you just see all 7 leaders in a group and they're saying things to each other, and it's not quite like shooting like a sitcom, like with 3 cameras or anything, but you can get away without having distracting gorgeousness. But the next few scripts we have, the look is very important, and the look will be, if we can afford it, fawned over a lot. And then I'm always willing to experiment with things. I'm making a short movie now that'll have a pretty it's just a short though, and I'm just doing it, it's a commission, and I'm just doing it mostly to keep the rust off my eyeball during the long periods of time that stretch in between feature films. It's important to make a short for me now and then, just to keep in shape. And this short I'm working on has a pretty experimental look to it. But I hope it's watchable as a story too. You know, so I hope I think I have a really radical look that actually is justified by the story. So we'll see. So in other words, I'll take it on a project by project basis.
So will you have your short at the Toronto International Film Festival this fall? Do you know?
It won't be ready in time.
Oh, it won't be ready. And the other question I have is this film, did you travel with it, and how was it received in France, and how was it received in the UK?
I was really lucky. It was received very well. It opened about 11 months ago at the Cannes Film Festival in a really big theater with the festival director Terry Fremeau sort of orchestrating a standing ovation at the end. I think it got a 6-minute standing ovation, which was pretty nice. The standing ovations at Cannes are a little bit different because they last as long as the festival director has the camera trained on the actors and the directors, and then, which is then projected onto the big screen, and so he sort of decides if it's going to be 1 minute or 6 minutes or 20 minutes.
No, I was at that Cannes screening.
Yes.
And the audience,
Right.
it was an authentic, it wasn't just orchestrated by Terry Fremeau. I think the audience sincerely appreciated the film.
I know Terry will be mad at me now. No, see, this is me self-sabotaging again, that's all. I have to learn how to take a good thing, a compliment. But I was complimenting myself by giving the running time of the standing ovation. Anyway, we did travel with the movie a lot. We went to New York for the New York Film Festival. We went to London for the London Film Festival. We traveled around to promote it. And whenever there is a good crowd in it for the movie, I would sit in now and then. I normally only watch a movie once or twice and then understand what I wish I'd done better and stuff like that, and that's enough. But I actually enjoyed the audience response enough. At Toronto too, there was a good response. And always more, at Toronto is at this theater, the Royal Alex. It's over 100 years old. It's got terrible acoustics in it, but it didn't matter because the crowd was so raucous that no one could hear the dialogue anyway. They're just kind of, it was like they were watching an early John Waters film at a drag party or something like that. I don't know, it was like I didn't even trust the reaction. It was so nice. And it's been good. And critically, I don't know. I don't read reviews anymore, but I'm told that it's, gets mixed reviews. Some people really like it. Some people, I guess there's always someone who really hates something. I tend to be more dialectic about movies now. And it was Evan who initiated this idea in a conversation the other day. But it's just so hard to make even a bad movie that there's almost always something wonderful in a movie or something terrible, but I can hold two drastically different opinions of a film simultaneously. And so I know Roger was a critic and I adored him, but I've learned to kind of, I guess if all the critics hated this, I'd be pretty brokenhearted, but luckily enough critics have liked it, and that I can ignore the ones that have disliked it.
So I think we have time for one more question from the audience. And I sat down only because I have vertigo and I started feeling dizzy. And I was looking over the edge of that. I didn't want to end up in the orchestra pit.
Oh my.
Anyway, Question from the audience, please.
We have one more here on your left, down front.
Hello, Mr. Madden. This movie, hello. This movie was really, really cool. I first heard about this movie like I guess before it was coming out, obviously. But I never got the chance to watch it until now. And like just searching up about this movie, I learned about bog bodies and all the interesting stuff in this movie without actually knowing the context in the movie. But after watching the movie, I really appreciate all that stuff. My question I have is a little simple. What was the brain made of? Like practically, if it was practical.
I'm just told, when I first started out, I was making props myself and stuff, but this is just a very good production designer and art director I told them we wanted a human brain, the size of a hatchback, and that it needed to be more pink than gray. And they just made it. But I did feel it, and it felt like it was made out of the same thing as there's this old material from the 60s you would know about called naugahyde, but it's kind of a plastic, a fake leather plastic. It kind of felt like that, like a thin vinyl surface. I guess underneath it was spray foam and then chicken wire and wood. I remember watching them transport it. It took 6 people, like brain pallbearers, to carry it on a like a rickshaw, and so it weighs about. You sort of got a sense of how much it weighed, and maybe I'm imagining that it had a wood structure, but I think it would. It would be wood, chicken wire, probably canvas, then spray foam that's then sculpted into convolutions, and then given a nice thin latex cover. In case you want to make your own giant brain at home.
Where is the brain now? Where is it stored?
It was actually just burnt to a stinking, toxic crisp in the middle of a Hungarian forest while the camera was rolling. So that's the brain. And when, for promotional reasons, my Canadian distributor wanted a giant brain for the Toronto Film Festival, they had to make another one. But they couldn't afford the full size. They couldn't afford the luxury model. So it's kind of reduced it's a more modest giant brain, maybe the size of I don't know, about 40 bread boxes, if that means anything. Metric bread boxes. I should also mention that I got vertigo once, and since Hitchcock's Vertigo is one of my favorite movies, the doctor told me I had vertigo, like a real diagnosis. I was thrilled. I was dizzy to the point of vomiting, but I was thrilled to have vertigo.
Why?
Because it was.
Why was I thrilled? Just to have an illness that's named after my
Oh, it's vertigo. Oh. I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
Yeah, we're having a little difficulty understanding you here on the stage, but do you have any final words for our audience here? Anything you want to, do you have a proclamation or something that you want to?
A manifesto. No, I don't. This will be just genuine and corny, but I'm really moved to see a good-sized audience come out for one of our films anytime, but especially at Ebertfest. And thank you for connecting me with the crowd afterwards, because it's a bitter consolation, but it feels pretty good compared to just not being present at all. So it's wonderful, and I wish I could now just stroll the sidewalks with you all after the screening and enjoy the night.
Well, you're welcome to come back as soon as everything gets back to normal. Thank you so much, Guy Madden.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
dizzy all of a sudden.
Standing